The difficult, challenging, and nearly impossible task of being Jennifer Lopez in love. At the age of 51 years old, she has had 3 divorces and 3 broken marriage engagements, and she isn't giving up. Why is it so hard for some people to find a happy ending? The graphic here I chose because I thought this was a great quote from her. And by the way, yes, that is Jennifer at 51. I know, right? Ugh, damn her. There's no way in the world that just because women turn the number 40, they're anything less than amazing. If anything, you're even more amazing, Jennifer Lopez. Now, Jennifer has come up on the radar because she has just broken up with her gorgeous Major League Baseball player boyfriend, Alexander Rodriguez, also known as A-Rod, which of course reminds us that Jennifer has had a long history with famous men, which have not resulted in marriage, even though that is definitely something she is pursuing. And it leads to some speculation and questions about who these people are and why can't she, seem to commit or settle in with somebody. And also, if you look at her history, she's had lots of relationships between the marriages and engagements. So I don't think she's had 6 months by herself. She's literally a serial monogamist that goes from one relationship to the other because, air quotes, I can't be alone. And that's a whole other conversation as well. So I thought because of these things, she would make a great candidate in terms of looking at astrology and relationship and the art of synastry, because boy, she's given us plenty of material to work with here. All right, now let's take a look at what we got with Miss Jenny on the block. Okay, so this is Ms. Lopez. She was born July 24th, 1969 in the Bronx, New York. Now, with Ms. Lopez, we do not have a time of birth for her, so disregard there are no houses to use because we do not have time of birth. So disregard any suggestions of ascendants or houses when people refer to her chart, because unless they know something the rest of us don't, we don't actually have a time. However, the planets are where they're supposed to be, regardless of what time she's born, with the exception of the moon, which we'll talk about in a second. So let's take a look at what we've got. She is the sun in Leo. Now her moon, this is where it gets a little weird because of the moon's position that particular day. The moon is either in very late Scorpio or very early Sagittarius, depending on what time of day she was actually born. We don't know, so we can only make some educated guesses. What we do know is that her moon is sandwiched right between Neptune and Mars on the day she was born. Regardless of what time she was born, that moon is going to be sitting right there, and there's a whole conversation about that coming up. She has Venus in Gemini. She has Mars over here in Sagittarius, right? Jupiter is in Libra. Mercury is in Leo. Her Saturn is in Taurus. And then we have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Uranus at 0 Libra, Neptune at 26 Scorp, and Pluto at 23 Virgo. Now, what I will say about the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, is that we typically don't use them in synastry or in natal charts very heavily because these are considered generational planets. People born within her age group are all going to share the same planetary placements and signs. So unless these planets make specific aspects to other planets in the chart or angles in the individual chart or in the relationship chart, they're generally just background noise. We're not using them. They're not as heavily emphasized as other things will be. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at who we're dealing with. Leo woman, Leo man. His Majesty, he's seen as a leader and a lover. Her Majesty, she's seen as a management problem and high maintenance. Now, the reason I bring this up is you may know a Leo woman in your life who, by the time she hits middle age, may have not found the love of her life and have a very difficult time finding someone that she can or wants to settle down with. And there are reasons for this that may be more gender specific or sex specific, whatever term they're using these days to identify like how you're operating in the world. So it is interesting to note, and we like to think that it's all because they have very high standards, and that may be part of it, but there may be more going on here than meets the eye. Now remember that any planet in its own sign of rulership becomes very powerful. So the sun is ruled by Leo, or rather Leo is ruled by the sun. So when the sun is in Leo, all those leonine characteristics are amplified. And they're very strong because they're expressing themselves in their truest nature. So when we think about Leo and the qualities of leadership, courage, um, noblesse oblige, right? The noble obligation to the people around them, protection, warmth, creativity, romance, just a real love of life. And those are the positive things. um, all of those things are expressed in very true nature, or the need, the evolutionary need for them to be expressed in their most true nature becomes amplified. Conversely, all the shortcomings that come with the sign, egotism, domineering behavior, or being overbearing, being conceited in one's own knowledge, very selfishness about their own resources and who they allow into their inner circles, all that sort of stuff also becomes amplified. But with men, when we see this in men, we assume that these are leadership qualities, and we either embrace them or we tolerate them if they're shortcomings. With women, on the other hand, we're not as comfortable with it, and this may change in future generations, but for now, up until this point, when women show signs of being commanding or having authority or knowing exactly what they want done and how they want it done, they're not described or embraced as leaders or having leadership abilities. They're often described as being high maintenance, or being very demanding. And oftentimes with Leo women, they have to do one of two things in order to get along in the world. They either have to adopt the exact opposite of their nature and become very solicitous and very submissive and conciliatory, and project all of the leonine qualities of leadership and courage and boldness, all those things, onto a male partner, which means that she's going to have to go out and look for a partner who will embody those things for her and express those qualities on her behalf. And anytime you project stuff on your partner and require them to be who you wish you could be, this leads to problems. And it's often very unconscious, which is a whole other set of problems along with it. On the other hand, the only other direction Leo women have been allowed to go have been to basically become caricatures of themselves, to literally mock themselves and embrace this idea that they're high maintenance and high demanding, this whole I'm a princess sort of mentality, right? Which is still not true Leo expression. It's a caricature, a mocking of female leadership or leadership qualities, and making them very small and very childish, right? Weak and childish, which is unfortunate as well. So it's difficult for Leo women in this world up until now. And like I said, this may change now and moving into the future. But up until this point, it's been very difficult for Leo women to operate in the world without becoming either the exact opposite of who they are and projecting those Leo qualities onto the men in their life, and having requiring them to carry that cross for them, or embracing the cartoonish mockery of who they really are and assuming a role of basically being a living joke, right? And still not expressing who she is. Now, in a relationship, this becomes extremely problematic because in a world where women are not allowed to be their authentic selves, they cannot find somebody who's going to embrace them as who they truly are, because nobody ever sees that. So if you have some Leo women who are friends, this may be part of the problem that you're dealing with. The antidote is always going to be yourself. And if you can't be yourself where you are, find some place where you can be yourself. Because at the end of the day, this is literally all you can be and who you can be. So it's not about being high maintenance or being a princess or any of that retarded, ridiculous stuff. It's about all of the best leonine qualities, the warmth, the love, the romance, the creativity, the performance art, right? The courage, as well as the ability to shine in leadership roles for the benefit and protection of the people around you. These are leonine qualities, and you should always be allowed to express those things without issue or hindrance. Okay, now the strip at the bottom of the video, just so you guys know, Frank Oz, no, his last name wasn't Oz. The gentleman who wrote The Wizard of Oz he did an interesting character analysis using these particular characters in his story as symbols. But he clearly didn't know astrology. So the actual astrological signs, because we've got the Trinity of Fire down here, the actual astrological signs associated with these characters are as follows. The one on the far left is actually Leo, right? If I only had a heart. And Leo is all about the heart vibration, right? Coming from a place of love, honestly, love and joy. That is absolutely the Leo expression. The lion was about trying to find courage, and the lion astrologically is represented by Aries, because in the Aries lifetime, their whole trip is about developing courage. So they're often given situations in their lifetimes where they have to make a choice and either find the courage and bravery within themselves to do something or to stand for something, or to basically hide behind cowardice and make excuses for inaction or doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing. And then the last one is Sagittarius. Oh, if the scarecrow, if I only had a brain. And with Sagittarius, it's all about knowledge seeking, because there's a part of Sagittarius that never actually believes that they know enough, right? If I only had a brain, when in actuality, they often know a lot. Or the other side of Sagittarius is the fool, right? The blowhard who thinks they know everything. These crackpots who think they've got a medical education because they watch YouTube videos, or that they suddenly are science experts because they watch the Flat Earther Society give, video presentations on why the Earth is flat, and conspiracy theory quack watcheries, like these people who want to believe that they're smarter than they are, and smarter than people who are actually experts in the very fields they're talking about, with very little to back it up, is also the other side of Sagittarius, and this knowledge seeking or not believing that you know enough. The opposite side is thinking that you know entirely too much when you know nothing at all. So that's your Trinity of Fire down there in the Wizard of Oz characters. I thought that was interesting. I thought I'd share it with you. All right, so Jennifer Lopez, she is a Leo woman. She is definitely a performer. It all comes from the heart, and she's very much about love and joy in her life, right? The eternal pursuit of happiness, love, and joy. And the first thing we're looking at is, does this woman have the moon in Scorpio or the moon in Sagittarius? Which is it? Tell me, tell me. Now, whether her moon is in Scorpio and Sagittarius is definitely going to change how her sun and the rest of her personality is expressed, because the combination of sun-moon will give you the expression of the individual, right? So a sun Leo and a Scorpio moon will operate very differently than a sun Leo and a moon in Sagittarius, or sun in Leo, moon in Sagittarius. So if she has the sun in Leo and the moon in Scorpio, you're going to get an extremely intense character, who takes themselves very, very seriously, like with the weight of 1,000 planets on their back, seriously. Sun in Leo, Moon in Scorpio is an extremely difficult combination to go through life with. It's even more difficult for the people trying to have relationships with you and share a household with you. I have had these members, I have had this combination in my family members. It's difficult. The upside, of course, is that their ability to keep a commitment is unparalleled by anything in the time-space continuum. When they say that they are loyal to the death, or when they will stand for the things that they believe in, like they mean it, like, and to eternity and back. Like the love of the vampire for eternity is nothing compared to a Sun Leo Scorpio moon giving their word on something or committing to something. Listen, the story of the vampire's got nothing on this. Now, that's very different from the Sun in Leo with the moon in Sagittarius. With the Sun in Leo and the moon in Sagittarius, you have somebody who's much lighter and much more playful and much more friendly and fun to spend time with, and a lot more forgiving of people's human errors. Sun in Leo, Scorpio moon, they're not forgiving people. Oh my God. And they don't hold a grudge. They keep a list that they will take with them through eternity. No matter how many lifetimes it takes, they're going to get you. With, right? With the Sun in Leo, Moon in Sagittarius, they're much more forgiving of human errors, and they're much more likely to give you a pass if they genuinely believe that you really didn't mean it, because they want to see the better sides of other people, and they don't want to believe that there was malicious intent in what you did. It's very difficult for them to accept that other people might be operating from such a low position or low mentality in life, because they don't. right? So Sun in Leo, Moon in Sagittarius is also, just like the Moon in Scorpio, driven by principle. But with the Moon in Sagittarius, again, it's a much higher frequency and a much more optimistic vibe. So they operate from principle, but they operate from principle with confidence that everything's going to turn out fine and it's all for the best and it's all heading in good ways and people meant well, which is very different from the paranoid, always seeing the dark side of things, Scorpio moon. So you can see how just the moon switching signs like that will absolutely change how that sun in Leo expresses itself. Now, in her particular case, this moon is sandwiched between Mars and Neptune, which gives it a whole different coloring by itself as well. With this, with that moon sitting there in a stellium with Mars and Neptune, we get a couple of interesting expressions out of this. So with the moon and Mars, and especially Mars in Sagittarius, so the moon would be in Sagittarius, well, with the moon conjuncting Mars in Sagittarius, what we get is somebody who's much more prone to impulse, right? Or impulsively reacting, responding to things. What is it? Do first, act first, think later. So that's a bit of a thing with her, right? Jumping into things emotionally before she's had a chance to really think things through. So emotional impulse, emotionally driven impulse is a challenge for her. Now, the other side of that is the moon conjunct Neptune. The moon conjunct Neptune, especially with the moon in Scorpio, is going to give you somebody who has a visionary quality. So they see the possibility and potential in things. This is a reformer, rescuer type of aspect because the Neptune is in Scorpio. So we're going to get a couple of things. We're going to get somebody who sees things that other people don't. So they look at things and they see possibilities, right? Ooh, you know what? I think one of these days, yada, yada, yada. When it comes to the relationships and people, this can be problematic because when a person is looking at someone else's potential and not their realities, right? Even though the person is possible or capable rather of being something else, like you can see the potential in someone, if the other person is not committed to and embracing who they could be as a potential and actively committed and working toward it on their own steam, on their own efforts, anybody who's been through any kind of relationships in life will tell you this never ends well, right? Because at the end of the day, we always have to work with a person in front of us, not who we hope they're going to become. So if a person has the capacity or the potential to become something bigger, better, and greater than themselves, or whoever they happen to be at that moment in time, there also has to be a real commitment on that person's part to try and move in that direction. We can't make other people become the people we want them to become. So with that moon Neptune, it gets a little, especially with all that Scorpio, right? It gets a little dicey because there's a tendency to see what's really possible, and maybe being a little more committed to that than what we're seeing in front of us. Now, remember that Moon Mars on the other side is also given to emotional impulse. So the two together is going to create quite the rescuer. So Jennifer will often see the potentials in her partners and relationships and react and respond to the vision she has of what's possible rather than the reality in front of her. And that's a little bit of the cart before the horse kind of approach to things, which can be problematic, especially if you're on the receiving end of it, where someone's trying to drag you through and into all these actions and behaviors and commitments that you're not ready for yet because you're not there yet. It's like taking a 6-year-old and seeing a potential Olympic ice skater and expecting them to do pirouettes on the ice rink when they're still trying to figure out how to stand up and walk across a room, right? Or stand up and walk across the ice rink in ice skates. So Moon, Mars, Neptune in this particular combination can get a little ahead of itself if they think that if you have the promise of something better. They're all in 100% and will try do everything they can to help you get there, but sometimes they forget that where you can be still has to be measured against where you are and how much development needs to occur to get you to that place, right? So there you go. Okay. Now, let's see what else we got here. Okay, so we're keeping this really brief because honestly, it's a lot of material in this series for Jennifer Lopez because we're not just covering her and a relationship. We're looking at her and her relationships with, let me work backwards, with Alexander Rodriguez, or Mr. A-Rod, the Major League Baseball player she just broke up with, Mark Anthony, her ex-husband, who she had the longest running relationship with, 14 years with this guy. So when you see him, not only was he unexpected, like nobody saw that coming, talk about people you never expected to get together, but it was also the longest lasting, which just goes to show that looks have nothing to do with the success of a relationship. We're also looking at the charts of her and Ben Affleck, and also her and the chart of Sean Coombs, who was known as Puff Daddy at the time when she was dating him. So we've got multiple people here in this history, this who's who of her dating history, that we're looking at the charts of compared to hers. So with that said, if you'd like to follow this series and you'd like to get notified when the next video comes up, please, by all means, hit the subscribe thing and hit the bell for notifications so you know when the videos come out. Also, if you enjoyed this series, please hit the like button so I can get some feedback for it. If you have any information you can add to this, because I'm not a huge celebrity watcher, so there's a lot of information I don't have about her history, her music, her singing ability, her, all this sort of stuff. The only thing I know about her is her general dating history and some of the gossip about Sean Coombs or Puff Daddy and Ben Affleck, that little go round, and also her not great acting ability. And I don't say that with any malice. She's very sweet, and she's, listen, anybody who thinks women over 40 are awesome is A-okay in my book. So that's not why I say that. In any event, if you have any information about her or any of these relationships, please feel free to put in the comments and share with the rest of us below. Kind of get us a bigger, broader, more well-rounded picture of the history here. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys soon.